I know that you have really impacted my life through these 36 episodes and almost 2 years of the show. I know for a fact that you've impacted so many other people as well. I've heard countless times that people decided to study BG5, become a consultant because of BG5 Live.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is actually episode 36. It has an interesting title. So today is Vanessa and Mike's last hurrah. So this is going to be our last show today. It's a little bit bittersweet and also a proud moment for Vanessa and I. We started this just under 2 years ago. So I think it was April of 2024 that we started this show.
It was
And
on Ra's birthday.
Ra's birthday. I always forget that. Is that April 11th, Vanessa?
I think so. I don't remember
Somewhere,
exactly,
somewhere
but
around there.
I do
Yeah.
know it was his birthday.
That's a big milestone. So Vanessa, how you doing? How's things?
I'm good. And this is definitely bittersweet, but it's lovely to be here with everybody today and just do a little revisiting of our last 36-ish episodes. Obviously, we're not going to go through all 36 of them, but just sharing a little bit about our experience, the connection, the collaboration, how it applies to business. And then we'll have a little comedy for good measure because we have Jim Hands on today. And Jim is our impromptu guest, and he's absolutely hilarious. So, yeah.
So recently there was a International Human Design Festival, and Jim was like, I'm giving it, Jim, I'm going to give you the title of resident comedian. So Jim got to do a comedy special. So Jim is a guest, but he's like if Vanessa and I were going to continue, he would be sneaking in as one of like the regulars. I actually put him as my guest here, but I think he has this way of kind of worming your way into your heart, and it's like, okay, here he is. So there was a festival about 2 weeks ago. I got to present, and it was a really nice experience. And Jim, I didn't get to see your show. Jim does a interesting combination of comedy and human design. Jim, would you like to share a little bit of how you work and how you bring comedy into design?
No, Michael, it's a very private experience for everyone. No, of course, I'd be glad to. And thank you for that very generous introduction from both of you. And I feel thrilled to be on the very last show. I was hoping to be more of a regular, and you're killing the show. So that's my 360, pretty much showing up. I just show up and put people to bed. No, what happened on Human Design Rate? What I wound up doing is I used comedy in my teaching career, and then I started playing around with human design. So I would look at someone's chart, and then start riffing, basically on whatever would come through. Typically, stand-up comedians do crowd work. Where are you from? What do you do for a living? Are you married? Are you single? Whatever. And here, what I did a couple of weeks ago, here for the first time live, where I live, I put up the charts, and it was kind of live in the moment. It was like crowd work, but one person at a time, and it was extremely inefficient. However, however, it was really interesting. We were expecting maybe 15, 20 people, and we got over 70 to show up. So that was really exciting. I think there is an underlying thirst for something new, something different, and my conventional comedy isn't that funny, Michael. So I've got that going for me as well. But uh but yeah, on the rave festival, that was what, yeah, I would look at a chart, and I would look at a chart like this, and I would go, I'm certainly going to need more money before I say anything else. And then or let's see how this person is so screwed up or whatever. But what happens a lot of times is I say, well, okay, if this were a student in my class, the first thing I notice is, very busy head in asana. 5 of the 6 gates defined in one form or another coming out of there, and a lot of openness, a lot of unconsciousness going on upstairs there in the head and the ajna, and down below, I'm an aura buster, 59.6, and some people like it, some people don't. When I get on stage, a lot of times, if I feel that I'm disconnected, I'll wade into the crowd, as I've heard other comedians talk about this, and just get into the auras and things like that. And I've been experimenting to see what just comes. And that's been interesting to see, you know, open throat, open ego, open G, open spleen, So that's been kind of my experience with it. And I always feel that sometimes when I do my little search on, and again, I'm in the BG5 classes, I'm getting certified there. That's the plan. Um, is that there is a lack of, well, I think there's a lack of humor sometimes from some of the people, not all, but some of the people that take themselves awfully seriously about, it's like, come on, let's relax a little bit. We're all here. And so yeah, so that I don't know if that was what you were looking for. You can
Yeah,
all
that's
back
perfect.
Sarah and bleep this out. That's the magic. That's the magic of this. So
When I look at your design, I feel like there's this huge element of surrender. I'm not sh like some thoughts are going on. You got a potentially busy mind, but you got a really powerful, you know, generator builder energy in that 59.6 and the 360, which is like this really powerful mutative. But there's that, with, like you said, that open throat, open communication function. There's this element of surrender. I have no idea what I'm going to say right now. There must be that kind of like standing on the edge of a cliff and just, I give you big props to be a comedian with this design and just kind of realizing I'm not sure what I'm going to say.
it's funny you say that, Michael. I've taken comedy classes from very, very good and uh, sound comedians, and they talk about writing your material and all of that. And there's and I remember on more than one occasion, uh, I well, there was the set that I prepared actually back in the 90s, and Carrot Top was on the show. And this was just a little comedy all stars. We were just a bunch of weird comedians, but they called me on stage. It was the first time I was ever on stage, and I went blank, and I just went with whatever came, and I got laughs. And um and the person who was with Carrot Top didn't watch. He was doing something else, obviously. But he said that wasn't what you did that wasn't what you did in rehearsal. And I said no. I'm sorry. I kind of went blank. And he said, you just did that off the top of your head? And I went, yeah, yeah, I kind of do that sometimes. Not everybody likes it. But and that was the first time where it was like, okay. So in teaching and being out in LA, and I've had a few times where on my YouTube channel, you'll see there's one section where I knew my prepped material was not going to work. And I just walked up to the crowd, and I just said, all right, let's see what comes. And it's probably one of the best examples of an open throat in the moment kind of thing. And then later on, I'll shift, and I could see the energy shift in the room. And that was one thing I was like, oh, okay. So to honor that is what I try to do now, to be helpful, because you could
Yeah.
really, you don't want to crush somebody, especially if they're vulnerable enough to be read. They don't even know what this is. They've never seen it before, so try not to do any harm.
Do no harm. Google's
Yeah.
old mantra, which is
Yeah.
pretty much gone these days, but yeah, interesting. Well, thanks, Jim, for sharing that. I really appreciate it. I've always been admired this ability to match human design with comedy. You're definitely one of a kind in that realm.
There's such a demand, Michael. There's
Yes,
there's
huge
such a
demand.
demand. Yes.
Human design is a serious endeavor for a lot of us, but you kind of balance the skills. So thanks, Jim.
Thank
Vanessa,
you. Thank you.
I was thinking about this idea of we can all do this, is sharing our experience of, okay, we're moving. We talked about this last time, the year before the big year, which is 2026 is the last year before this big transition that happens pretty much a year from now. And we've been talking about in the human design community this shift to 2027 and what it's going to be like. But really, all of the signs, the symptoms are already showing up. So I just wanted to just have each of us reflect, what are you noticing in kind of the bigger picture, and what are you noticing within yourself in this? Vanessa, I'm going to put you on the spot. Any thoughts around that?
Well, without going too deep into geopolitics, I will say on the stage of like the bigger picture, and I'm noticing this not only in that arena, but also even in like pop culture, is that things that have been hidden for a very long time are now coming to the light. Um, I think, yeah, people are like things that were hidden have become more obvious. People are looking deeper where they may not have looked before. Um, so that's one thing that I'm definitely noticing is that the truth is starting to come up more and more. So that's like in the bigger picture. For me personally, I'm finding also as I align more and more with my human design and not just theoretically, but actually in an embodied way, things are becoming clearer. And I am no longer constantly trying to logic my way into and out of decisions when that's clearly not my authority. There is no authority that is called logic. There is no authority that lives in the mind. Even though my mind tries to convince me all the time or has for a very long time, I just am so much more like clear on it. And it's just the relational resonance, which I know is also becoming like more and more important. And trait 59 is one of my bridging traits that's, coming in. Like I'm noticing how much that is shifting things and how well things work, especially in business, is really having that relational like resonance and that sense of intimacy um, with other people to actually create something meaningful, not just something that's going to make money. And of course, I mean, we're all in business, so profit is part of business, but not profit for the sake of just having money, but profit in a way that also gives us our key indicators of satisfaction, success, peace, and delight and surprise. That's just become more and more obvious to me. And I'm also noticing that in other people as well. Yeah, so those are just some of the things that I've been noticing.
It's interesting the way you talked about it. I don't know if you used the word authenticity, but that sense was in what you said, that the cross, the theme of 2027, which is 2027 is a marking point for a 400-year cycle. So that cycle began in 1960, 61, and it's going to continue for 400 years. We'll see at the end what it turns out to be. But so there are four gates or traits that define it. So two of those traits are a channel. So the 3420 and the 59-6, those mark the overlying themes of this big shift. So the 3420, both Vanessa has it, I have it. Sara, you should have it because you have everything else as an express builder. So the thing about individuality, and especially this part of individuality we call integration, is incredible. Like, what do I want? What's important for me? So trying to make yourself do things or trying to do things that just aren't aligned with who you are as a person is going to be very hard to do. I'm noticing that on a bigger scale, I'm shocked at how much these institutions are just breaking trusts left and right. It's shocking how much, like, what do you think's going to happen? It's almost as if they're playing out their script too. So corporations laying off thousands and thousands of the workers, and you see it almost every day now. That to me is shocking. So our trust, our reliance on corporations is being shattered by the day. And so that doesn't that doesn't have to go on too long until we say, okay, we're going to withdraw our support. This is a tribal thing. This is part of what was before. We're going to withdraw our support from you as a company. We're no longer going to buy from you. We're no longer going to support you. We're no longer going to work for you. And the government is kind of doing the same thing, but on a different level, which is we're going to divide you as a country. We're going to divide you into these different categories, and you're sowing rebellion, which again is telling us we can no longer rely on these larger organizations to support us, to help us. And so what's going to happen is, it's not what's going to happen, it's already happening, which is we as a society are saying, we no longer trust you, we no longer want to support you. And we haven't even got to 2027 yet. That was a little big riff.
Well, it's interesting too, because, as we move into 2027 for the era, we're moving from a line 1 to a line 6. And this line 6 needs trust. Like trust is such an important element of the line 6. Yeah, so it's interesting that you pointed that out. And another thing that I'm noticing is that bigger things are splitting into smaller things. So where we really had like a lot of globalism, in a way that globalism, like alliances are changing in a lot of different ways. And recently, I was reading some things about Europe, um, European governments using or like starting to create their own technology because they don't want to rely so much on foreign technology. So it seems almost like things will be more homegrown and not so like, again, this giant, industrial huge organizations. Now seems like it's going to be splitting more into smaller, more intimate, more homegrown things.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point. I've heard it talked about some of these European countries, they are investing in cooperatives, which I think is an amazing business model. I wonder if we're going to see more of those. So, Sara, I have a question for you. So, Sara is essentially, she is the kind of the head of the BG5 Institute. And so she's also really tapped into a lot of not only the teachers, but the students and also people who are just interested. So Sara does this thing where she offers these free 15-minute consults where you can call her up and you can ask her questions. You can talk about BG5. You can talk about what it's like to be in the Institute. So I have this sense, Sara, that you're really tapped into a lot of what's happening, not just within the Institute, but I get the sense you're seeing or hearing from a lot of different people. What's your sense of like what people are saying around like these shifts that we're seeing and we're talking about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's a lot of people find us because they feel the shifts and they're looking for a different way to live their life. And, personally, and what I hear from others is, BG5 and human design in general is a way to just, understand and surrender to what's happening. For me personally, I'm very sensitive, and so I can feel everything going on in the world, and it can be scary, but when I know what's happening, I'm able to surrender and let go and just let the process unfold, because while it is a little nerve-wracking that we do see these institutions that we've relied on for so long crumbling, I do have a lot of hope that something better will emerge because of it. And this is just the process. And I have the tools to get through it. And I think some people are just going to have a harder time than others getting through it. We see with so I see kind of two groups of people. I see some young people coming through the Institute in their 20s and 30s, not yet ready to study, but definitely doing a lot of self-study on their design. And that's just where they're at. And so I help point them in the right direction for some tools and, free online resources. The definitive book is always a good one, BG5 live episodes. And they're really struggling in their careers. Like they cannot work for these institutions anymore. You know, they went to college, they were, you know, the good girl syndrome, good boy syndrome, you know, did what they were supposed to do and are just miserable, depressed, anxious. You know, now they have kids trying to juggle it all. And this generation of people coming through are very conscious and aware of kind of what didn't work in the past and how maybe they want to raise their children moving forward. And they find human design is a really great tool for that. So we see people in tech and we see people coming from education, like a lot of teachers, people that want to bring BG5 into the schools, which is incredible because not everyone learns the same, you know? And that is a huge institution that we've relied on for so long, and it doesn't work anymore. It hasn't worked for a while and it's getting worse. And then we have this other group of people. I see a lot of people in HR, which is pretty incredible because that's another industry that is going to be able to take BG5 and human design into the workplace. And I think that's going to be a big game changer. And so it's nice. It like restores that hope and faith in humanity that we have some change makers who want to make a difference in the workplace. And then we have maybe our third group of people who are retired and they want to learn this information for their kids and their grandkids. Maybe have, you know, their last career in life, consulting, sharing this information, and they have a lot of wisdom to share. So it's really interesting who we bring in, but you know, all really great people, and you can definitely tell that they have sensed for a while the shift that's happening and they eventually find us. And a lot of them say they don't even know how they found BG5, which is kind of interesting. They don't know how they came across it, who introduced it, but it just keeps popping up for them. So it'll be, you know, interesting to see if that continues for people.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So one of the things where you were talking about struck me is, you know, pe especially young people, and now I think it's across all generations, is as I talked about before, this idea of the institutions that we looked to before and we relied on for help, support as a safety net, those are no longer there. So this is a question for all of us. Is there a therapeutic element to human design BG5?
Oh, I
Because, go ahead. Yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
Like I'd respond, yes. I feel absolutely, you know, as somebody with a tribal wave on my solar plexus, I find that understanding that was one of the most healing things, most therapeutic things about human design for me, and has been more therapeutic than years of therapy. So I just, sorry, I had to respond with that, but I feel like absolutely, absolutely. And also in relationship to other people and understanding how other people are different from you, I think has been incredibly healing to my relationships.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, Vanessa. Jim, what about you? You were a teacher, so you were in the trenches. You worked with high school students, so you saw young people, but at their most emotional place probably in their whole life, you know, going through that adolescent shift. What do you think about all that?
Well, I mean, one of the great things about being a teacher is that you can kind of help a kid find that inner spark that really makes them unique. And my job as a teacher is to crush that. So,
That's
so
Jim too.
that, sorry, Michael. Well, I have to echo it. One of the things that was so magical about because my journey in human design, you guys know, started in the late '90s, and I go, this is too weird. This no, this doesn't. And like Sarah said, it just keeps popping up every time. Oh, I'm frustrated again. Okay, fine, I'll wait. And then, things happen. So I start living my design more. And as I'm a teacher, I realized I had access to my students' birth data, like a lot of them, like in the files have the birth certificate. Now I'm entitled as a teacher to go look in the files whenever I want, when, mostly test scores and maybe some discipline records or things like that. So what I would do is I would get the birth data and run their charts. Now I would never publicize that. I never shared it with them directly, but I would look at the keynotes. I would just look at the basic. It's like I always tell people at the beginning, if just find out what your type, your strategy, and authority is. If you know that, start there. Don't worry about because you got to eat in the dark in a kitchen because everything has to be cold. It's like, shut up. Just find out, find out what you are first, and then play with it and experiment. And that's what Ra said. He said, I don't care if you believe this or not. So what was interesting was I would look at the chart of the students or the students that I had in front of me, and the kid who was always getting up in the middle of my amazing lecture on irregular verbs in Spanish to sharpen his pencil, manifester, always, and oh yeah, he always does that. So I take these kids aside, and they were always the manifestors, man. They were always in the office or something. Imagine that. Um, and I just use a couple. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be okay, but just check with me before you do something. That was all I said to him. And that shift changed everything. Seeing projectors, being in the glee club, the football team, the drama club, volleyball, all these activities, and the A plus, got to go to Harvard or Stanford or wherever. Just and I used to come up and I'd say, relax today. So they would be like, I say, relax. And 9 times out of 10, it was like, I have to finish this English paper. It's like, okay. But to teach and put my lesson plan for generators to respond, for projectors to feel invited to, manifestors were going to do whatever they were going to do anyway. Just let me know first before you set fire to everything. And then I did have a few reflectors, too, and one I got to share that information with once he was 18 because I felt like that was fair. Um, and he was surprised. So, but to observe that particular student, he was in one class where he fit very well, and then he moved mid-semester to another class, which was much more chaotic energetically and a lot larger. He had trouble, and looking at the charts, you can totally see that. So what I do now, and Sarah and I have talked about this, and we've talked about this, is just letting people know because you can do your chat GPT and all that other stuff to get your reading or whatever, but ultimately it's an art form, it's a connection piece. And when you see my chart there, you're getting me. And what? I think I'm 30 years into this or 28 years in or whatever it is. I can't remember, but man, and it's exciting because I have friends who have kids and they want me to, give them their overviews and their readings and like Sarah said, I think BG5 in the 12-step community as well, it's been very, very helpful in terms of addiction recovery to understand not so much why from the mental capacity, but the mechanical operations. And there's a reason for it. Lean into that, try that, and see how it works. So that probably is way more than what anybody wanted to hear. But I got an open throat, so you asked, so I'll mute myself. That's fine.
I asked, I got. So one of the things that when I listen to Jim is that human design is one of those human design slash BG5 is one of those systems that you can go as deep as you want. You can study for years and years and years, and it's like never reaching the end because it feels like there's always more information. And then this, so this is a phenomenon I discovered in my 20s when I was studying martial arts. And martial arts is very similar. Like when you watch these martial art movies, you can see these, people getting up and they're doing the like mad spinning kicks and like, it's crazy stuff. And then I watched the world championships of like karate. And the people who are winning at the kind of the most elite level were using 3 techniques, but they used it in a way that was so effective. So the timing, the coordination of it all was really powerful. And then later when I started studying BG5 and human design, I realized those little keynotes at the right time in the right place are so powerful. So that's, Jim, that's kind of what you were talking about there. So we're going to switch gears, and this is going to be our final topic, Vanessa, is reflections. What was it like for you this past almost 2 years? And we can bring in Sara too as well. What's your experience? Anything you want to reflect or share?
Yeah, it was funny when you first asked me, I was like, me? I'm not ready. I haven't even finished my certification yet. And then I also told her, I'm like, I'll have to think about it because I'm have emotional authority. And then you with your sake, you're like, okay, do you want to start this day? I'm like, I haven't gone back to you yet.
I was
But
like,
I
come
was
on, come
pretty,
on. You're going to be a part of it. I knew you were going to be a part of it. So I just like, I knew you were
it
going to
was
say
funny because
yes.
I'm like, I have to wait out my weave was like, yes to you. And it's been so much fun. Like we've explored so many fascinating topics. I've had so many awesome guests. Uh, I think we've had all the faculty at the Institute on. It's been super fun. It's been such a great experience, and I have learned a lot, and it's been really fun and enjoyable. And I really appreciate that you invited me to do it with you.
There was no choice. You were always gonna be that person. So Sara and Linda asked me if I wanted to do take over BG5 live, which had a really illustrious kind of experience. So Karen did it for a couple of years, and she was amazing, and she had all these guests, and it's like, wow, that's a big shoes to step into. But I felt really comfortable with you, and so it was just the two of us. And I looked actually back at our topics that we covered. We did some really deep dives. We looked really deep at the Penta skills, and then we finished up just recently with the OC16. But we covered all of these topics. And if you don't, for people who are maybe just tuning in for the first time, Vanessa added this component, which was we looked at the daily transits for that day, and we explored the gates or strengths or traits of that day. And so we did this kind of deep dive every show, and it was kind of like a snapshot of those moments. But it also helped all of us go deeper into all of the traits. So, and then we had some amazing guests, and you were really pivotal in Vanessa getting a lot of different people on and having these conversations with people. And a lot of the people that we had on in the earlier days were students or just recent graduates. So it was really exciting to hear what they were up to or how they were using the information. It was really powerful. So my reflection is I was scared to death the first show we did, Vanessa. I was so nervous, like, oh my God, I'm doing some show. And then it kind of turned into this podcast. And I specifically didn't tune into any of that. I was like, I don't want to think about that. I just want to just do this show with Vanessa and Sara and have some guests and kind of just play around with it.
I think there's an important lesson here for anybody that's watching about when you do something new and it's scary and you're uncomfortable, and then you do it, and the next time it's still scary and a little bit uncomfortable, but not as scary or as uncomfortable as the previous time. And then every time you do it, it gets less scary and less uncomfortable until it is second nature. And it's such an important aspect to keep in mind, like in business. When you're growing your business, it's like if you're not uncomfortable at least a little bit, then you're not growing. They kind of go hand in hand. So if you can see that discomfort, especially early on when you're starting something new, is like, oh, good, this means I'm like doing something that's going to expand my capacity versus shrinking away from it because it's scary and then just not doing it. Like really shifting your perspective around that is super, super beneficial. And I think Mike just gave a really, really great example of that.
Vanessa, did you ever have a moment during these past, many, many shows, like we have a show. This is kind of cool. I can't believe we're hosting a show. Did you have a moment like that?
Well, I already had my own podcast before we started this.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'd already been doing this for a while and I mean, I was, when we first started, I was like nervous and worried about it just because this is a whole different audience. And my fifth line, and my first line is like, I don't know enough. And my fifth line is like, what are they going to expect? But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a whole different show with a different audience and yeah, good and exciting and fun stuff.
Yeah, it was. Sarah, any reflections of having two crazy MGs, express builders, run your podcast, your BG5 Live show for 2 years?
Yeah. So it's funny because one thing that I always think about with how the show started is we had our first meeting to kind of go over the details. When are we going to have the show? And I just remember Mike had to take a pause and he's like, you guys, we have a show. Like, this is a really big deal. And Vanessa and I are like, yep, you have a show. But he just needed to take a moment to integrate everything and, you know, just feel the depth of it and put him like he was going to put himself out there to complete strangers on the internet. And so that was a really big deal. And I think the advice, Vanessa, you gave is just spot on and one that I'm going to reflect on myself because when you step out there and be vulnerable, it inspires other people to do the same thing. And so what you guys have done with BG5 Live is very powerful. And I just wanted to take a moment to honor your contribution to the community, to further this information in the world. I know that you have really impacted my life through these 36 episodes and almost 2 years of the show. And I know for a fact that you've impacted so many other people as well. I've heard countless times that people decided to study BG5, become a consultant because of BG5 Live. They've, followed the show for a while and they finally responded and took the dive. And now that person is probably going to become a consultant, become a teacher. And so you guys are really the one person who are starting the ripple for so many others. And you've done it just in just such a natural way, I think is the best way to sum it up. Like no agenda. You're really just here because you love BG5, you love this information, and you wanted to share it with everyone. And I just really appreciate your authenticity. So you will be missed. You are irreplaceable, but the show will go on one day. And I know that whatever you do next is going to be fantastic, and you're going to continue to make a big difference in the world. So thank you so much.
Oh, Sarah, that just melts my heart. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
I love you guys. So much
I was
love for
like,
you
I'm
too.
gonna cry.
It's
Thank
okay.
you for
Here's a
sharing
tissue.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. That was
Thank you both. Really.
so Vanessa, I don't know what your experience is, and I think you have a little bit more because you have your own show. But this is the only time I've ever done something like this. So I didn't follow any numbers. I didn't even know. I never watched the recording. I never listened to anything ever again. But hearing what you just said was so powerful for me because, like what Vanessa said, I was just showing up, hanging out with some good friends, having good conversations. I had no idea the ripple effect. So to all the people
yeah,
who
same.
listened and watched, we really thank you. We appreciate you. Vanessa and I just kind of took this dive into it, and I didn't remember that moment, Sara, you talked about. Like we have a show.
Hmm.
I have a feeling that new iterations will show up in different ways. So Vanessa, on behalf of Vanessa and I, we'd like to thank everyone who was our guests, our listeners, Sara and Linda, Jim, showing up at the end here. We love to have you. Thank you so much, everyone. Vanessa, want anything
Yeah,
else
thank
before we
you.
go?
I just want to say thank you so much. It's been such a wonderful journey. And um, Sarah mentioned something before we started the show that very much remind me of the human experiential way or the abstract circuit. You have you imagine something new and the fates take hold, and then sometimes there's a little bit of a crisis, like one of us is sick and we can't, I mean, we don't know what we're going to do or what are we going to do on the show tomorrow, and somehow it all works out, and then at the end we reflect back and maybe, we have the abstract wave and there's a little bit of disappointment because the show is over, but well, it's not, our part of it is over, and then we start something new. So thank you for being on this journey with us. Thank you both, to Mike and Sarah, for the opportunity. And this is not goodbye and see you later. There will be other iterations of the show. And when there are, I'm sure Mike and I will be a guest at some point.
We look forward to it. And also, there are people who are behind the scenes who have been supporting us really faithfully and amazingly. So people who take this and put it up on YouTube and put it up on a podcast. So everyone behind the scenes, thank you so much too.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.